This should be played at high volume.
Welcome to Outta Pocket. Here's your host, Michael Davis.
It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, back feeling good, repping my team win or lose, and joined by the guy from the Grit and Grind podcast, Shawn Lucas. You've been familiar with his face, and you've been familiar with another face on Tuesday afternoons. It's Mike from Mouthing Off with Mike. And then we got the producer of it all, of Tobacco Road Sports Radio, Desmond Johnson. Guys, I'm glad to be back. Feeling a little bit better than yesterday. You guys missing out pocket. I apologize for that. But the NFL draft happened this weekend, so we'd be remiss without mentioning what took place over the draft weekend. If you remember on Friday's episode, we had Cody from the C3 podcast. We had Kevin Avery from Four Man Rush, and we were talking about the Panthers' 32nd overall pick, the one they traded up for, and we didn't expect them to. And they kept adding pieces throughout the weekend on Friday night and on Saturday. And so I wanted to pose a question because I know we're in Carolina Panthers country here with Tobacco Road. Looking at the NFC South, you got the Saints, you got the Falcons. Falcons made some questionable moves. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the reigning NFC South champions. Many people thought this would be a real rebuilding time, but I think the Panthers had a pretty decent draft. And so I wanted to pose to you guys, do you think the Carolina Panthers, after this draft weekend, are in a position to compete in their division in the NFC South? Shawn and Mike are Eagles guys, so I want to ask you your unbiased opinion on what the Panthers would do. Shawn, you go first.
B- draft for the Panthers. No, they're not ready to compete yet. Good pickup in the first round, trade up to get the wide receiver Leggett. Good pickup from Texas. He wasn't the starter at Texas. Brooks, he ended up becoming the starter because the guy got hurt. Alabama game was the one I definitely watched with Texas. He didn't do that much in that game, but after that, he kind of picked it up against Kansas and some of those teams in the conference. So that was a good pickup because Bryce needs that, but not ready to compete. Cousins with the Falcons. Baker over there in Tampa Bay still to be the favorite too. I'm not a Cousins guy, but I think Cousins has enough around to at least get them to win the NFC South. And also, you got to work on that O-line. Bryce needs help.
Yeah, and Mike, have they done enough to compete in the NFC South?
You know, it's tough to say, you know, on paper. I mean, I will say I agree with Shawn. You know, I would give it a B, you know, with their draft. I thought they did fairly well. I really like the pickup. I like them trading back up in the first round to get Leggett. He's a really great talent, man. He's so big. He's got the speed. He's got the explosiveness. So I think he could be a good guy down the field for Bryce. Jonathan Brooks, you know, when you have, I'd say 3 running backs in this draft that people were considering to be, you know, guys who could start this year. That's a guy right there. You know, like Shawn said, a little underwhelming at times. You know, he kind of came into the right time. He had the right, everything kind of clicked for him at the right time, at the right places, you know, for him to kind of get in that second round of the NFL draft. I agree. I do like Sanders, the tight end pickup from Texas. I do like that pickup as well. But we'll see the O-line. That's the real question. Did they do enough to fortify the O-line?
And Jatavian Sanders was one of my picks in our mock drafts as I was doing episodes with Ryan Frick and Shane Smith. Ryan loves the Leggett pick. Des, I don't know what you thought going into this weekend of, you know, what the Panthers needed to do to compete, and if that is your expectation for this year for the Panthers to compete for at least a division title.
I mean, I think they'll be competitive. I think they'll be more competitive than they were last year. I gave the draft a B+ for the Panthers because after the 4th round or so, you start getting into the weeds in terms of the players that you're selecting. You really won't know. I was actually talking to Jonathan Stewart about this last night as we were planning Believe in Panthers, and he was like, I don't know if you can really do a winners or losers of the draft yet because we haven't seen him play. So it's not really, you won't know till like February or so what was a bust or not. I did love the movement that general manager Dan Morgan had throughout the weekend. People question why did he trade up into the first round when he was the first pick of the second round. A lot of it had to do with, and Dan explained it, by being a first rounder, you can offer a 5th-year option to that player as opposed to only a 4-year deal. And they have big plans for Xavier Legette. So Legette, I should say, the proper way to pronounce his last name. So grabbing him was great. I was on record, I think might be on the show last week, that I wanted one of the running backs they didn't really seem to be talking about running backs, and I wanted one. I thought Jonathan Brooks would be off of the board by the time we got a chance to really pick him because I had been hearing Dallas wanted him. Turns out Dallas did want him. Morgan caught wind of it. They got ahead of him through a couple of trades and ended up getting the best running back rated in the whole draft. So now they got extra backs, and they can do something with Miles Sanders, clear some cap, trade him away if possible, or they can keep him and see how he looks in this offense. So when you look at everything, both Shawn and Mike both said that, with offensive line, they did go out and spend $150 million on 2 starting guards. Austin Porter will be back. Looks like he's going to be playing center. Brady Christian's going to be backing him up. Really, it comes down to Icky at left tackle. Will he do better with a better guard beside him than last year and a better coaching staff? And Taylor Moton hasn't missed a game in like 3 or 4 years over at right tackle. So the line seems to be solidified. They're going to run the ball more than they did before behind Canales. And this is year 2 for Bryce. Again, this time last year, Bryce was just a newly picked first-round pick. This year, Bryce has been in the building for the entire offseason. So it should be a huge difference in play for Bryce compared to last year. So looking around the division, Tampa is getting older. New Orleans is a dumpster fire. Atlanta is interesting, but I mean, why not? I think 9 wins could win the division. So who knows? Maybe.
I mean, we've seen 7 wins almost win that division, you know. So, I mean, anything's possible. I could agree to that, Des. I could agree to that. I agree. Saints are not in competitive territory for that division. Atlanta, they don't know what they want. They don't know if they want a rookie, if they want Kirk Cousins, if they want Cole's cash, So I think it could be anybody's game really in that division. That's the one division in the NFC that you can't really predict.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and Des said, and I fully agree with the statement that you can't really judge a draft class, the week after it happens because you don't know how these prospects are going to pan out. Everybody thought Jamarcus Russell was going to do a lot better with the Raiders than he actually did. I mean, there's several cases of this happening. Trey Lance was supposed to be successor to Jimmy Garoppolo, and it turns out to be Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. You never know how these drafts are going to pan out. Me and my dad were watching the draft, and we were just scrolling back 6-7 years ago, and okay, how did these drafts look? And you're like, wow. I mean, this guy popped off. Man, I remember that guy. Isn't he out of the league now? I mean, it's very interesting when you go back, but we kind of have to analyze what the draft did for teams in terms of competing this year. And many people would say that the Atlanta Falcons, one of the Carolina's rivals in the NFC South, lost this draft because you need help around Kirk Cousins. You just paid him a guaranteed deal for 4 years, and now you draft a rookie quarterback who would need development anyways, but by the time he's developed, you still are guaranteed to that Kirk contract. So some people might consider Atlanta losers in this draft. If you had to, because I'm going to make you guys, if you had to look at these teams from this past weekend and say, hey, this team is moving in the right direction after this draft, or this team, I'm leaving with more questions than answers, who are those 2 teams on different sides of the spectrum, Shawn?
When I look at, first of all, the team to me that won, I'm gonna say my team first, then I'm gonna pick another team because I'm an Eagles fan. Mitchell fell right in our lap. We did not have to draft up. We didn't have to trade nothing away. It's everything just fell in place for him to fall right there. The best defensive back in the draft, and that's what we needed. Now, since I got my team out of the way, to me, the best team also in the draft, I didn't look at my team, would be the Commanders. They got Jaden Daniels. I like Jaden Daniels. I used to stay up, play at night when he was in Arizona. Herman was office watching him play. I think they had a good draft. I think they did very well. To me, the biggest losers of the draft is Dallas and also the Raiders. And I picked the Raiders up. I picked Dallas because you didn't really make a splash draft like you guys may do. You didn't get a running back. You didn't get the things I thought y'all would address. I don't know what Jerry was doing in the war room. Maybe he was watching something else. but he didn't do like he may do. And also the Raiders, you got to trade up to get Bo Nix. You cannot let Bo Nix go to the Denver Broncos where you could trade up to grab him, especially when you need a quarterback.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, Shawn kind of took everything right out of my head here. But I'll kind of give you another one here. I think since I'm an Arizona guy, I'd like to say I think the Arizona Cardinals did very well in this draft. I think they're winners. They got their guy Marvin Harrison Jr. They picked up a running back in Trey Benson. They picked up a tight end. They picked up a guard. They picked up cornerback. They had a lot of picks in this draft, and they maximized everything. And I would say, to be honest, yeah, the Raiders, big losers for me. And I also feel like the Giants here too. I know, we're division rivals and I know they got Neighbors, but what Danny Dimes with Neighbors, I don't see Danny Dimes being a long-term solution in New York, even though they paid him all that money. It would have been a good time. Maybe look at a quarterback, maybe trade up like Shawn said about Las Vegas. I think that, the two winners for me, Eagles, Cardinals, losers, would be the Raiders and the Giants, I think.
Okay, at least you didn't say the Cowboys like Shawn.
They also
clarify.
They're
Just
just
clarify.
perennial. They're just perennial losers at this point. They don't do any movement in free agency. They don't do anything in the draft. They don't even go after the guys that they say they want. And then they sign 95-year-old Zeke Elliott as the solution to the cause. I don't know, Mike. I don't know what to tell you there. I'll let someone else talk on that.
Dude, anytime the Cowboys draft 2 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds, I know that's going to hit. Like, those are booms. Like, they don't miss on offensive line prospects, and the 2 positions you really need to fill was left tackle and center, and they did that. So that's just my piece on the Cowboys. I know Des wanted to jump in on the conversation.
I'm not going to dump on the Cowboys because I think we all kind of just know that they didn't land the plane. They needed a running back going into this draft, and somehow they came out of it without one at all. I don't understand it. I'm gonna stay in my division. Worst, I'm gonna go with Atlanta. And I know the national media has dumped on them a lot since the Michael Penix Jr. pick. It wasn't so much. I feel bad for Michael Penix Jr. because he's a top 10 draft pick, and all everybody's talking about is how bad of a pick it was. I don't think necessarily that he was a bad pick. Actually, if you ask around, most people would say he threw the prettiest passes in college football last year. The problem is where they got him. They got him at 8 when they could have got him probably in the second round, to be honest. And you just gave all that money to Kirk Cousins, $100 million guaranteed, $180 million total. I think I saw it was written that Kirk Cousins deal is really only like a 2-year deal in terms of guaranteed money. So if the thought is to do a Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre type thing and have Penix sit behind Cousins for 2 years, that's all well and good. The other problem is Penix is 26. So like by the time he finally gets on the field, he'll be 28, 29 years old. So the whole thing is just weird. I'm not sure why they did it. They were on a roll of picking offensive skill position players the past 3 or 4 years in the draft, and they could have kept doing that to help Cousins, and they didn't. So Kirk Cousins didn't even know they were going to draft Michael Penix Jr. His agent came out and was like, we found out when they said it on the TV. So there's already dysfunction in Atlanta at the quarterback position in terms of what the hell's going on there. Winners, I got to give it to Chicago, honestly. They got their quarterback, Caleb Williams, won them all. And then to not trade up and to get Rome Odunze from Washington at wide receiver, who was considered one of those top 3 wide receivers in the draft this year. Now you've got him. You compare him with DJ Moore. Their offense is starting to come together. It's still Chicago, so I don't really know how well the offense is going to perform, but got something to work with. Their division's going to be really tough, though, with Detroit and Green Bay on the come up, and Minnesota trading up to get J.J. McCarthy. He still has Justin Jefferson to throw to. So the NFC North's going to be really, really interesting, really, really competitive. But I would give it Chicago as having one of the better drafts, and Atlanta for just having the stinkiest draft.
I mean, I'm so happy you said that about Penix because I was thinking it, and I was like, by the time Cousins even is finished with this 4-year deal, if it is, true 4 years, yeah, he's going to be, almost 30 years old. And I don't see how that makes a lot of sense when you had younger talent on the board, especially at 8, and you had all those wide receivers there. So, yeah, I think biggest loser would be Atlanta.
My biggest thing with Atlanta is, let's say if Kirk's playing hot year 2, let's say he comes in year 2, has a good run in the playoffs. Do you want to go to Penix then, or do you want to sit him? And then year 3, year 4, Kirk gets hot again. Kirk That's Kurt type of football. He's cold one season, hot the next two, cold again. So
He's
that's a roll of the dice right there.
And he's coming off
MVP year last year. Like you just wasted a top 10 pick. Like to me, like you could have traded down if you wanted Penix Jr. You know what I mean, and picked up extra picks, but they didn't do any of that. They just went straight for it. Like it was like a drunk pick. Like they did it and they weren't really thinking about it. And then afterwards, like, oh, we forgot we had Kirk Cousins already. We already paid him all this money.
And
what are we doing? So
and it's guaranteed. And the funniest part is that I would say that maybe the Falcons were just on auto draft and they just ended up drafting the next available player like a fantasy draft at that point. Get off auto draft, Atlanta. You got to get on the clock, man.
Man, you guys are reminding me. I'm in a dynasty draft right now as we're on air, so I'll have to attend to that after the show. Couple names we didn't mention was a team that traded back, and it actually did them more harm than good. Was the Buffalo Bills. When you trade that pick and you give the Kansas City Chiefs Xavier Worthy, who Worthy may or may not pan out. He's all speed, but I mean the Bills needed a receiver. They just lost Diggs to the Texans. Okay, well the Bills trade back again with Carolina, let them get Leggett, and then at 33, the Bills do get Keon Coleman, but in the process, you made your strongest competitor tougher in the Kansas City Chiefs, who's obviously going for a three-peat. They just re-signed Travis Kelce yesterday. Kansas City's making some moves, and a team that nobody's mentioned in terms of a team that I think won is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they got the best offensive lineman in Joe Alt. I think they started to address their receiver position with Ladd McConkey from Georgia. I would have picked a couple other receivers other than McConkey, but I mean, if Jim Harbaugh knows what he wants, I'll trust Jim Harbaugh in that. And nobody's talking about their two later picks. One of them being Brendan Rice, the son of Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, picked in the 7th round. I mean, and I get it. Like, trust your bloodlines. You know, we're all wrestling guys. We understand the importance of a bloodline. You trust those bloodlines. Okay. If WWE never went after Roman Reigns, we don't get this 3-4 year reign of incredibleness of the tribal chief. Okay. Now the Chargers see everybody else passed on the son of perhaps the greatest receiver in NFL history. Let's take him with a flyer pick in the 7th round. Why not? And then the Chargers also drafted Kamani Vidal from Troy, the running back, who is almost a spitting image of what Jim Harbaugh had in Blake Corum over in Michigan. So between Vidal and Rice, I think those two guys, man, I would have loved for them to be in Dallas. I would have loved to root them on, but they're going to be in the Chargers, and they're going to have a great coach in Jim Harbaugh. That's a little draft recap. Also, during this time, we've had the NBA playoffs. There's some, NBA super teams, some powerhouses who aren't playing as such. The Milwaukee Bucks and Philadelphia 76ers are in danger of losing and getting knocked out in the first round. And then we saw the Phoenix Suns get swept the other night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. We saw the Los Angeles Lakers losing 5 last night to the Denver Nuggets. When you look at what these teams have compiled, people would look at their roster and be like, well, they're going to compete at least in the conference finals. But to not even make it out of the first round is tough, whether it's your matchup or whether it's just the way the team's constructed, the players not performing, or the coaches not getting the players in the best position. I wanted to ask you guys, of those 4 teams, the Bucks, 76ers, Lakers, or the Suns, do you think any of these cores get blown up this offseason? And are you more disappointed with one team over the other? Shawn, I'll hit you with those hard-hitting questions.
I ranked them, Mike, and I ranked them from Suns as the worst right now. Nobody expected the big 3, Bill, Booker, and KD, to get swept by the T-Wolves. This is a team that they swept the NBA season. So to get swept by them was big. Now, don't get me wrong, I was a big supporter of the T-Wolves. I started watching them. I mean, Anthony, he made his money. He showed why he's money in the money in the playoffs. Cat played good. Rudy Gobert played good. So the T-Wolves are a good team, but for the Suns to get swept by them and not even get one at home was a big difference. My next will be the 76ers if they lose tonight. I mean, it's getting bad over there in Philly. Not being able to get past the first, second round, past 3-4 seasons, that's starting to get real ugly, and somebody could be on the seat. After that, I put it pretty much the Bucks. Giannis and Dame out, what could Jazz? I mean, they're doing all they can do with the best they got. Then I put my Lakers next. You know, we went into this game knowing that it was a very hard chance of possibility of beating the defending champs Nuggets. Now the only reason I ranked us 4 out of them was because they beat us by 2 buzzer beaters. You know, that's 2 games we could have had right there. So that was the flip side of it, when we could be playing a 7-game series if we would have got those 2 last night in game 2 of the season. After that, I put the Pelicans. I threw them in there. Only reason why, because we haven't seen Zion play. When will Zion play a playoff game so we can really see what this team is made of? I think out of all of them, the ones who's going to get busted up the most will be the Suns. I can see them bust that up. I know Bill said today, he made a statement that this was the beginning. Trust it. I don't know if Bill will be coming back because they brought him in to be the 3rd guy. So if KD and Booker is off, you're the 30-man night. That's your night to get your 30 and get us over the hump. With him only averaging 16, I think Bill is done over there.
Let me hop in right here and piggyback off of Shawn. I'm going with the Suns too as being the biggest disappointment. I made a post a day or 2 ago that the big 3 era is dead. That era is gone. And I saw another post where somebody put side by side that Kevin Durant has been a part of 2 of the worst super teams of all time in Brooklyn and Phoenix. But I need to put a disclaimer because people use that word too loosely in terms of super team. To me, and this should be the definition if you think about it, a super team is when 2 or more players in their prime link up and play. Phoenix is not a super team. Phoenix is more like the late 90s Houston Rockets when it was like an aging Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, and Charles Barkley got traded over there to them. So they had a big 3, but they were all in their mid to late 30s. It was, towards the end of it. A super team would be the Miami Heat, with LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh. They joined together in their prime and had a run. A super team would not be the 96 Bulls. That team was built by the general manager and the team. They were built through the draft. Like, it was organically grown. The Golden State Warriors wouldn't be a super team. They would be a super team when Durant joined because they recruited Durant to come over. And at that point, you had Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. That could be considered a super team. When he left, they were no longer a super team. They were just an elite team. There's a difference between elite teams and super teams, and people use super teams a lot. And this narrative, I'll touch on LeBron for just a second because I've stayed up and watched all those Laker games this past week for the playoffs, and I'm exhausted for it. I keep seeing this thing about people hating on LeBron and all this other stuff. Nobody hates LeBron. Everybody hates his fans. Like, nobody hates LeBron James. Everybody hates the LeBron fan base for trying to push this narrative that he's the GOAT because he's never been swept in a first round series or whatever. Like, I keep seeing these side-by-side comparisons of him and Jordan, how Jordan got swept in his first round series. Jordan never got swept in a 7-game series. It used to be best of 3 back then. He got swept by the Boston Celtics, one of the top 3 teams of all time, the 86 Celtics with Bird, and they had 5 Hall of Famers on the team. The Bulls hadn't even been built yet. So it's like people try to push these narratives to make LeBron look better. And I think in the end, between that and him sticking around longer, it's hurting his legacy to me. Like, the longer he plays, the past 4 years, I'm a Laker fan. The past 4 years, the Lakers have been in the play-in tournament 3 of those 4 years. And one of those years, they didn't make the playoffs at all. They have not been higher than a 7 seed in the past 4 years since the bubble tournament or the bubble championship. It's almost like they're expecting LeBron to do all this stuff, but they're forgetting he's 39. And they should have kept the core of the team that won the title in the bubble. The Alex Caruso, Dwight Howard, all those guys. That was their defense. And they felt like they could still do a super team thing and just get rid of everybody but AD and LeBron and just throw parts in there and it would work. And they're finding out it's not. And Phoenix is finding it out. Brooklyn found it out a couple years ago. The dynamic doesn't work. But look at the teams that are good right now. Minnesota, Oklahoma City, the Knicks. Denver. They all built through the draft and shrewd trades and just putting pieces together to make a team. It's like it's coming back full circle finally. And to be honest, LeBron started that circle. He's the one that started all this in terms of clicking together with friends or whatever to play. LeBron, Steph, and KD will never win another title again in their career, in my opinion.
So it's interesting you bring that up because this is the first year since Curry entered the league back in 2009 that KD, LeBron, or Curry haven't advanced past the first round.
Right.
The first year ever. So
I don't think they're going to. If you look at the makeup of their teams, Bradley Beal has a no trade clause in his contract, so they can't trade Bradley Beal. They would have to trade KD, which would hurt his legacy, or they'd have to trade Booker, who they drafted. So it's like they're kind of stuck, really. And look at the core they blew up. They were in the finals 3 years ago. They got rid of Ayton. They got rid of Chris Paul. They got rid of Cam Johnson. Like all they got rid of all of it for KD and Beal basically. And
That
what did
team was special. I
That
got
team was
to
doing
see
great.
that team. I got to see that team firsthand out here, man. That team was special. Like I really thought they were gonna win those finals, man. And then it just fell off.
Impatience.
I think the Suns are in trouble.
Yeah,
I think the Suns are in big trouble.
Wow. Why do you say that?
I mean, it's just, look, the last few years, like this is another team similar to the 76ers. Now the Suns, you can argue, got to the finals, that one year they lost to Minnesota, but
the Bucks.
this is the Bucks. Yeah, the Bucks. This has been tough, man. Like, I mean, I listen to it out here a lot. I hear a lot about it. We got diehard Suns fans out here in Arizona, and they're disappointed. It's the same thing every year. They're like, oh, we're so close, and then this falls off. These guys don't play well enough. It's unfortunate, but I think the Suns have the biggest chance of seeing the team get blown up and a complete rebuild happen.
Yeah, and just a reminder, you guys can be a part of the conversation if you comment
Shout
on
out
our
to the
YouTube
boys.
channel. We've had a few comments roll in here on our live broadcast that we do during your lunch hour, and so I want to bring up to you guys. We're doing that age well segments. And so we only have about 3 minutes left here on the show. It's usually Top Rope Tuesday. We had to, fit all the stuff in with the draft, playoffs, missing yesterday because the tummy wasn't doing too hot. Honestly, probably that ACP. I went for an ACP and it was not a good
every
move.
time. Yeah,
it gets me every time.
Yeah, every time.
I thought I could manage, but it did not. I will not call out the restaurant that fed me that ACP. But usually Top Rope Tuesdays, I do a wrestling podcast that I'll drop tomorrow, Wednesday afternoons. But Mike also has a wrestling podcast, Mouthing Off with Mike. He didn't steal his name from, Drop the Mic with the little wordplay. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, does a championship change hands this weekend at Backlash?
Absolutely 1,000,000,000%. And new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair.
Did I miss? Is that match?
It's official. They're ready last night.
That match is happening, ladies and gentlemen. Jade Cargill and Bianca are holding those women's tag titles and bringing them back to the blue brand.
Wow, I didn't know that match got made. How did I miss that? I watched
that match was made 2 weeks ago. Where you been, Mike? What's up?
Man, I don't know. I'm probably in a daze from that ACP. Or watching my Miami Heat go down 3-1 in that series. Shawn, let me ask you about another NBA team. The Pacers and the Bucks play tonight, and the Bucks could get out of the playoffs now. Who do you think wins tonight? Does the Bucks series continue, or do the Pacers put them out of their misery? It's over?
It's over for the Bucks. Pacers right now, I mean, they're one of the teams I watch. They're playing good basketball. To me, the Pacers remind me of what the Bucks were about 4 or 5 years ago. Spreading the ball, everybody's involved. Everybody's doing something. I like to watch them play, but yeah, no Dame, no Giannis, it's over.
Man, that would be a crushing blow to Milwaukee fans, but I kind of like it because y'all made this big deal about Damian Lillard being the game changer all of a sudden and to lose in the first round for a second straight year after you made Budenholzer your scapegoat. Yeah, I would like that. I would like to see that. Des, your question, who wins tonight between the 76ers or the Knicks? And I just make sure that you're not a Philly or a Knicks fan, because I know that's a curse we got going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Knicks. They just feel like they're just more connected. There's more into it. Jalen Brunson and his old man park game, it's just like it's beauty to watch. And they're making me become a fan to root them on going forward through the Eastern Conference, because I'm not really a fan of any of the other Eastern Conference teams. And to me, if the Knicks are in play in May and June, the NBA is better. Just like if it's the Lakers or the Celtics or whoever, they would love a Celtics-Knicks Eastern Conference final. I don't even know if it matches up that way, but that would be the dream of the NBA if they got something like that. We are watching the changing of the guard, like pretty much right before our eyes. And the last time I can remember it in my lifetime was around 2001, 2, 3, when Jordan retired finally for the last time. And a lot of the stars that I grew up with in the 90s, like Patrick Ewing and Gary Payton and Clyde Drexler and Charles Barkley, and that group started to retire and move on. We're at that point again now with Steph Curry, KD, LeBron. All these guys are in their mid-late 30s. Like Steph Curry's 35, I believe. I know KD's 35. LeBron's 39. Like we're not going to see these guys at the highest level as we've been accustomed to anymore. Like it's when it happens in basketball, it's a wrap. You don't get another shot at it as you get older or whatnot. So we're seeing Minnesota and the Knicks and these younger teams, Denver, OKC. They're elevating themselves to where they're going to be, and they're going to be there for a long time. So I'm going to put the Knicks there. I can't put the 76ers there because of Embiid's health. I don't know. They're a different team when he's out there, but they depend too much on him. Tyrese Maxey's a really good player, but I think the Knicks just have something going on, and they play better defense too behind Thibodeau. So I'm going to go with the Knicks.
Okay, he's
Knicks
going
5,
with
baby.
I know Mike likes that as the Knicks guy here, and I made sure Mike didn't get that Knicks question because I don't want that. I don't want that curse or the jinx to continue.
Dude, I jinxed my alma mater last night. We were in the conference tournament first round. We were hosting, and they were playing a team that a team that won like 4 games all year. They beat them by like a combined 20-something runs the 2 games they played them. And in the parking lot and then in the press box as I'm setting up, I'm like, well, we're only going to be here for an hour because they're going to get run ruled or whatever. This team's horrible. 3 hours later, they have blitzed my team 12-4 in a final and knocked them out of the tournament completely. And everybody in the press box is just staring at me like, you just jinxed them. I'm like, oh man, like, like it's for real, like in baseball. Like if you say stuff like that, they consider it a jinx. And I was just like, damn. So that happened to me last night before I got home and watched the Lakers lose on the last second jumper. So
anyone listening, Dez is hiring personal security to go with him to the grocery store. You can send your applications in to Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Somebody get this guy an
Gmail
MFT.
account.
Get him an MFT right now. Somebody call up Tamatongo. They need some help. He needs an MFT
please.
Right now.
Man, well, we'll pray for Des to make it to Out Pocket back on Thursday safely, 12:30 to 1 as part of your lunch break time.
I got to go right back over there at 4 o'clock today. So for a doubleheader. So yeah.
Yeah. So he's hiring quickly. You'll get onboarded and all of it will be good. But yeah, Out Pocket will be back Thursday. We'll probably cover some more NBA playoffs. Drop the Mic and Cat Cave air tomorrow in place of this. Also check out Mike's Mouth Off with Mike podcast. He'll be doing some backlash predictions later in the week. Check that out. All our Out Pocket episodes are available on demand through the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. Go follow Shawn and Mike. Their Twitter should be in the YouTube description. But for myself, Michael Davis, Shawn Lucas, Mike, and Desmond Johnson, this has been Out Pocket for your Tuesday afternoon. We'll see you back Thursday, same time, same place, right here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.